Alright, let's see how the Tenpai video did. It's probably looking to be pretty average here. Okay. I guess people really like me making Yu-Gi-Oh decks into Commander decks. So let's do it again! So last time I did Tenpai Dragon, which, let's be honest, was kind of not that hard. You just looped a bunch of literal spirit dragons that were made in Kamigawa, which perfectly represented Tenpai dragons. They looked almost the exact same. And with all the reanimation and persist shenanigans Magic has, making Tenpai wasn't that hard. And ultimately, I decided I wanted to do something with fusion monsters. And no, I'm not just gonna make a meld deck and say, look guys, it's a fusion monster deck, look, oh, totally. No, that's too simple. Just like last time, I wanted to take a pre-existing archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! And try and convert that into Commander and Magic. There were a few different fusion decks I could have chosen from, but I definitely wanted to choose something that is well known by players. I don't want to go back and grab some like super old unknown archetype that only Yu-Gi boomers would know. No. I wanted to take one of the most popular fusion archetypes in the game that many players would instantly recognize. A deck that has a pretty dedicated fan base of players, with someone even going out of their way to make a 20-hour-long video as to how to play that deck. Oh yeah, you know it. We're making Branded, baby! I am serious, by the way. There actually is a 20-hour-long deck analysis and combo guide on Branded. You can go watch it right now. I'll link in the description. It's insane. So how do we go about making Branded in Commander for Magic the Gathering? You might be asking, what is Branded? Branded is an archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! That uses fusion summons and a lot of fusion support cards for repeated summoning of extremely powerful fusion monsters from the extra deck, typically allowing the branded player to clear away any problem their opponent can throw at them. Now, there's a lot of iconic cards in Branded. Mirage the Ice Blade Dragon, Fallen of Albaz, Super Polymerization, but by far, the most iconic one, in my opinion, has to be Branded Fusion. So to help you understand what most fusion decks do, in order to fusion summon a fusion monster, you normally need to cast a spell that has fusion in the name. The most commonly played one is a card simply called Polymerization, which just allows you to fusion summon a monster by using creatures from your hand or field as materials. And typically, most fusion spells require all of the materials you need to make the fusion monster you want to make to be in your hand or on field, but not Branded Fusion. Unlike other fusion summoning spells, Branded Fusion allows you to use cards in your deck as materials. And when you use monsters from your deck as materials to summon a fusion monster, the cards go from your deck to your graveyard. So not only does Branded Fusion allow you to make extremely powerful creatures for essentially no real cost, it's also card advantage because the cards you use from the deck to fusion summon actually go to the graveyard. Branded Fusion is by far the strongest card the Branded archetype has access to. And I think I've found actually a pretty close equivalent in Magic, and that card is Lively Dirge. Lively Dirge, if paid for its full spree cost, lets you send a card from your deck to the graveyard and reanimate up to 2 creatures with total mana value 4 or less. Experienced Yu-Gi-Oh! Players may hear that and be quick to point out that this isn't exactly the same, as Branded Fusion usually sends 2 cards from the deck to your graveyard and not just 1, which leads me to our choice of commander with Angelo the Painter. Angelo is blue, black, red, 3 mana for a creature, which when he is out, gives our first instant and sorcery we cast each turn casualty 2. Meaning, we can use a creature we have on our field as a material to copy Lively Dirge. And yes, before you ask, spree effects are copied if you pay them prior to casting a spell, which will allow us to really turn it into a Branded Fusion, sending 2 cards from a deck to the grave and allowing us to get the reanimate effect twice. So I think this makes it pretty clear that Lively Dirge is absolutely the best card in our deck, and by extension, your main goal should be to get Lively Dirge or our Branded Fusion into our hand, which we can do pretty easily with Spell Seeker, Profane Tutor, and Diabolic Intent. If we don't have access to one of those, we can try to entomb and reanimate Spell Seeker with our selection of effects. Our creature recursion is Valgavoth's Faithful, Doomed Necromancer, and Reanimate, and our entomb effects are Unmarked Grave, Buried Alive, and a Vile Entomber. Once we've gotten Lively Dirge into our hand, and we've cast and Hello, we'll need creatures to use as materials in order to copy our Lively Dirge in order to make it full power. And the absolute best fusion materials in our deck are Bloodghast, Prize Amalgam, and Timeline Color, as these are all of fusion materials that can loop themselves back to the field of their own effects in the graveyard, and we can send them from our deck to the grave directly with our Entomb or our Foolish Burial effects. Now, it's time to cast our equivalent of a full-powered branded fusion. Your average Lively Dirge should look something like this. The first Lively Dirge, our copy, will send a creature capable of reanimation from our deck to the graveyard. Typically, your best target for this is Doom Necromancer, as it's only a single black to tap and reanimate with them. Lively Dirge will then reanimate them to our field, plus an extra 1-drop if we have one in our graveyard. Alternatively, if you have Scribe of the Mindful engraved, you may want to opt for Valgavoth's Faithful instead, or vice versa. That way, you can bring them both back to the field directly. Now, for your second copy of Lively Dirge, the original, you'll want to send a fusion target or a creature that recurs instants and sorceries, such as Ardent Elementalist or Scribe the Mindful, both of which would allow you to return the Lively Dirge back to your hand upon resolving, allowing you to do all this again on your next turn. As for fusion targets, we have a few. Avatar of Woe is probably the closest thing we have to a Mirror Jade in our deck. It's not the exact same. Mirror Jade banishes or exiles a card, and if it leaves, it essentially Ingrux wakes your opponents, but alas, I could not find something that on ETB banished any card in the field, and if it died, one-sided wrath your opponents. I know, I'm sorry. But Avatar of Woe, in addition to just being able to tap to blow up creatures, can also be castable for a simple 2 mana if 10 or more creatures are in all graveyards. Itali, Primal Storm, is just an absurd value engine, capable of getting us very far ahead in the game if she sticks for long enough. Hullbreaker Horror can start clearing away problematic cards as we cast spells, and Scourge of the Throne is more of a acceleration target. You don't really want to grab them unless you already have multiple big beaters on board due to previous fusion summons. If we previously managed to get Anger in the graveyard, we can make these fusion summons even better by being able to attack the turn we summon them. But in addition, there's an even better play we can make. A better fusion summon target than all of these. If we have Anger in our graveyard, we can use a copied Lively Dirge to send a Phyrexian Dragon Engine and a Mishra claimed by Gix from our deck to the graveyard and reanimate them. Since they have haste, they can swing the turn they come out, and in so doing, we actually managed to establish our one and only actual fusion summon by melding them together into Mishra, lost to Phyrexia. I would love to fit more meld cards in here, but unfortunately, Mishra is the only actual good one. There's also like a rat and a grave robber that turns into like a 5/6 that gives your board like +1/+0 and menace. It's not good. Don't play that one. So unfortunately, Mishra is your quote-unquote only actual fusion summon. So a copied Lively Dirge assembling a selection of reanimate creatures and entomb effects, and creatures being able to bring the Lively Dirge back to our hand is our main combo line. But we also have 3 emerge creatures with Elder Deep Fiend, Distended Mindbender, and Haragast Erupting Nullkite that act as just solid plays we can make from our hand if we draw them by using our creatures as fodder for them, which again will most likely be Bloodghast, Prize Amalgam, and or Timeline Color, since those are fusion materials that can loop themselves back to the field from the graveyard off their own effects. These 3 cards are meant to replicate the Bestials that Branded often plays, which are creatures you cheat out by exiling or banishing creatures from your graveyard, which isn't exactly the same thing, but I mean, I think it's close enough. Copium. As for our generic cards that every commander deck needs, For card draw, we have Big Score and Unexpected Windfall, which are 4-minute instants that discard 1 to draw 2, but also make 2 treasures. If these are copied with End Hello, they go insane because you discard 1 to draw 4 and make 4 treasures, so you can have just a insane follow-up turn. And we have a smaller version of that card with Demand Answers, which is a simple instant speed, 1 mana, discard 1, draw 2. We have Village Rites and Corrupted Conviction, which are simple 1 mana instants that allow you to sack a creature or draw 2 cards. We have Steam Augury, Fact or Fiction, and Epiphany at the Drown Yard as instant speed draw spells that also do manage to fill our graveyard with relevant cards, and Delve Fuel for our next 2 card draw spells with Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise, which are 2 just really solid card draw spells. We have Siphon Mind as a simple 4 mana 6-for-1, making each opponent discard 1 and having you draw 3. Once again, if copied with End Hello, goes insane, as it then makes your opponents discard 2, and then you draw 6. And finally, we have a good old Frantic Search. 3 mana instant, draw 2, discard 2, untap 3 lands, which, if copied with End Hello, actually does become a ritual, as you will spend 3 to be able to untap 6 lands, netting you 3 extra mana for the turn. As for our mana ramp package, it looks pretty standard. We have an Arcane Signet, a Fel Warstone, and a Soul Ring, all 3 signets, Talisman of Dominance, and Talisman of Indulgence. I opted to leave the Talisman of Creativity out, as our main color for this deck is black. Wayfarer's Bauble can be cast on turn 1, and then sacked on turn 2 to go and grab a basic land. Dark Ritual is just a very solid card nowadays, which again, does go insane if copied with End Hello. A Commander Sphere, which can be tapped for mana and then sacked in the same turn for Delve Fuel if you are in a pinch. And finally, Cormala Glamour Thief as a 4 mana 2/4 haste creature, which can pay 1 and tap to add 3 mana. And when she dies, allows us to return a instant or sorcery card from our graveyard to our hand, allowing us to once again loop our Lively Dirge by sacking her to End Hello's casualty. We have a couple of MDFCs with Pinnacle Monk and Waterlogged Teachings. Pinnacle Monk can be just a, albeit overcosted, recursion for instant sources in a pinch, and also it does have 2 power, so it can be used as a fusion material for End Hello. And Waterlogged Teachings for 4 mana at instant speed can go and grab any instant or card with flash in our deck. And finally, for interaction, we have a few cards that I think are actually pretty close to interaction you see in Yu-Gi-Oh!, as well as just some generally good cards. Counterspell and Drown the Lock are 2 very solid counterspells, with Drown the Lock also being able to be a creature kill spell. Amphibian Downpour is a storm card that can make multiple creatures lose all abilities and make them a simple 1/1 at instant speed. Dress Down is honestly a really cracked card that I don't see anybody playing. This is essentially a 2 mana infinite impermanence that affects the entire board and also cantrips, meaning you don't go down in the number of cards in your hand when you cast it. No one plays this. I don't know why. It's literally an imperm that, rather than affecting only a single target, affects the entire board and also draws a card. Play this card, just in general, please. It's very good. Fairy Macabre is the closest thing I could find to a Call to the Grave. You simply discard her from your hand to exile up to 2 target cards from graveyards, and she is a 2-power creature, so if you're in a pinch, you can hard cast her to use as a material for a Lively Dirge copy to our commander. Force of Despair is the closest thing I could find to a Nibiru in this game, and can be cast for 0 by exiling a black card from your hand, and once cast, destroys all creatures that enter the battlefield this turn. Again, not exactly the same as the Nibiru, but is a pretty close imitation. Shadow of Doubt is our Ash Blossom, which for 2 mana of blue or black can make it so players can't search libraries this turn, and once again, for some reason, draws a card. Theoretical Duplication for 2 and a blue at instant speed. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control this turn, create a token that's a copy of that creature. I had somebody in my comments say that this is the closest thing to a Max C in Magic, which, if you don't know, is a card that plagues Master Duel. It's banned in paper, but for some reason Konami refuses to actually hard ban it in Master Duel. I don't know why. And honestly, I agree. This thing is super close to being a Max C in Magic. Max C, it's not the exact same, as Max C does draw cards and does not make you token copies of creatures, but it still is an instant speed play that punishes your opponent if they want to try and extend more beyond how much they already have. It's cool. It's Max C in Magic. Play it. It's fun. And finally, we have Andrag's Rampage, which is the closest thing I could find to a Super Poly in Magic, but honestly, it's still a far cry from it. For 3 red, a sorcery, you destroy all artifacts you don't control. Then exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of artifacts that are put into graveyards from a battlefield this turn. You may put a creature card exile this way onto the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. Super Poly is a card that allows you to summon a fusion monster from your extra deck, but you can use your opponent's monsters on their field as material for the fusion summon. And on top of all that, it also has the Yu-Gi-Oh version of Split Second. So your opponent just can't do anything in response to it, and then it uses their cards as materials to make the fusion monster. Super Poly is an insane card, which if it was printed in Magic would probably cost like 9 or 10 mana. It is insane. And once again, Andrag's Rampage does not hold a candle to Super Poly, but it removes your opponent's cards from their field and then gets you a creature from doing so. Is it the exact same? No, but it's the closest thing I could find. And that is how to build and play Branded in Magic the Gathering. This deck is honestly super customizable. You can make any changes you want, really, as long as you preserve the whole copying Lively Dirge to entomb a creature that sacks itself to reanimate things, and using the copy to actually go and grab a fusion target from your deck to put in the graveyard. You can make pretty much any change you want and preserve the whole branded fusion imitation aspect of the deck. The deck is very fun. It's also cheap as well. I think my current list is roughly only around $100. You could totally make some big, bling changes as well if you want to. Add some fetches, shocks, add stronger fusion targets, anything you want, really. I hope you enjoyed this branded deck tech. If you want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh decks converted into Commander, please feel free to leave suggestions in the comments. I'd be happy to hear them. If you want to support me directly, you can consider becoming a member of the channel. For as low as $2 a month, you'll get access to a member-exclusive Discord server and member-exclusive emotes such as Loot Cheems, Ilharg Boom, and Pogliana. And I hope you enjoyed watching. I'll see you next time. Go make your Mirror Jade clones with Avatar of Woe and Atalis, and hey, make Mishra too. That's your only actual fusion summon target, and yeah.